So this time I'm going to discuss the things to avoid or to not do. These are the faux pas that you would like to avoid during throwing of a bowl. So take the piece of clay, center, seal it on at the 4 o'clock position, add water. Cone up, and when you're coning up, you want to take your hands off the top of the cone very slowly. If you take your hands off abruptly, this is what happens. So it's no longer centered at that point. So take your hands off very gently and slowly when you remove them from the cone. When you're bringing the clay down, avoid doing this. This is what I call the flat top, when you're bringing your hand straight down on the mass of clay. First of all, your arm is not connected to your body when you're doing this, so you don't have as much stability. But the other thing that happens when you do the flat top, like so, this is what I call the flat top, the next thing that results in when you cone back up is the volcano. So if you continue to pull up on the volcano, you'll get an air pocket in there. So the minute you see the volcano starting to happen, what you must do with your right hand is curve over the side like this to get a dome shape back on your mass of clay, and then that will prevent you from getting the volcano as you pull up when you cone up. So here we go, coning up. And this time we're going to take our hands off very gently and slowly so we can see that this part of it is still on center. I'd like to show you what your two hands are doing as you're bringing the clay back down on the wheel. The right hand, if it's working just by itself, I'm going to take the left hand out of the equation for a second, just so you can see what the right hand is doing. So the right hand is pushing the mass of clay off center. But notice that it's not crossing the line, it's not going over the top of the clay, it's always staying on the 4 o'clock position of the mound of clay. And so you saw from what I just did, that you can get it on center by knocking it off center a little bit, and then you let up on pressure and the mass comes back onto center. Because I did not use my left hand, I have a bit of a mushroom undercut here. So that's the purpose of the left hand when you're bringing the clay back down, is that the left hand is gathering the wall of the clay and making it nice and smooth. So again, we'll cone up. And I'd like to show you again, knocking it off center just a little bit. See what the right hand is doing? It's knocking it off center. And when I let up on the pressure, it comes onto center. So make sure when you're doing this procedure of centering back down on the clay that you're actually letting up on the pressure once in a while to allow it to come onto center. Once you get the clay centered and you open up the mound of clay, at this point, you want to stop the wheel and check the thickness of your pot. So you would like for it to be about a ½ an inch thick right there in the bottom so that you have room to trim a foot later. Then your thumbs are going to come out towards your hands. The hands don't move. And then you compress the clay towards the middle 5 times, trying to get a nice, smooth, seamless curve. And the real thing that we're trying to achieve here is to compress the clay so that we don't get an S crack in the bottom of our pot later on. When you're pulling up the clay, pulling up the walls of the clay, which you always want to enter the clay and take your hands away while the pot is moving. If you put your hands like this and start the wheel, see what happens? It gets it really off center. So I'm going to attempt to put that back onto center again. when you pull up the side of the clay, try to come straight up. And try to have the speed of your hands the same as the speed of the wheel. It's very important that you touch every bit of the clay as you're pulling up. If you do something like this, where you just touch part of it and don't make contact with all of it, and I pinched at the top, so I did two no-nos at the same time there. My hands were going faster than the wheel, and I pinched at the top. So you see what happens, and then that's very hard to get rid of that once that happens. I'll try to level off the top a little bit. So when you're pulling up on the piece of clay, don't do this either. Don't stop the wheel and then take your hands off, because once again you're going to get it off center by doing that. When you have a piece that's wide open or really thin, you want to slow down the wheel a little bit. If you're going super fast like I am right now and pulling up, what happens is it really throws the bowl out quickly. But as I go thinner, you'll see what happens. And so that is completely a no-no, as you can easily see. So I hope that some of these faux pas that I just showed you will help you in your throwing techniques.